Mock examination at 60 words per minute, entitled Screen Time. Just a word on the groupings in this passage, screen time. First of all, let's look at the grouping screen time. So screen employs the CR blend, which means there's no vowel between the C and the R. Think about Cruella from the beginner's series. And so therefore the N goes inside the C of screen. And then the M is disjoined for the word time. Either underneath, as I do, or if you've learned T-line from a textbook and they've shown the M for time on the T-line, then you write whichever comes most quickly to your mind. Now let's look at the phrase in these days. The S goes outside the angle, quite a common phrase. And at the start of the video, Chamber of Commerce talks about changes to working patterns, which was 100 words per minute. We talked about how once we know a phrase, we can easily and quickly adapt it. So if instead of being in these days, in those days was dictated, we would include the O of those. Because remember, we distinguish between this, these and those as shown on the screen now. We also reminded you that the longer the phrase, the more likely it is that the whole words can be omitted. Some whole words can be omitted. And the phrase can still be recognised. So, as a matter of fact, omits the A, it omits the word of, and we also omit the F of fact. If the phrase had been draw your attention to the fact, we use the same principle. We omit the W of draw, and we also omit the words to the, and again the F of fact. So we actually write draw your attention act. More adaptations. So here is it is a fact. Now there's fewer words in that grouping. So again, generally speaking, that means less omission. In this particular passage, the phrase is draw your attention to some. Here I have added the word some to the special outline attention. If you prefer, you can write the word some separately. Let's look at the common grouping that, the. We know that one very well, don't we? So we also know the special outline amount, which is an A indicator with a shortened M on the T-line. And of course, that disjoined M for time, so amount of time. But if you wish, you can join all that together in one phrase. That's the amount of time. And if you do, you will be able to omit the A indicator of amount because it's all together. You decide whether you could transcribe it better as one or two outlines. Other groupings in this passage using the word time, 2 or 3 times. Remember to keep your pen on between the figures 2 and 3 to make the R of or, as we do with 4 or 5, 5 or 6, and so on. More and more time, much time, limit the time. Now for a number of, number and of being special outlines, of course, as well as those S's inside the curve with a nice easy motion. S inside the curve also for the phrase there is nothing. Now what about mental health? That's becoming more of an everyday phrase. So here is a suggestion to change it from this to this where we just write the shortened disjoined M for meant. Then we join on the L, upwards of course after an M. And then we write health in full, but very close to it so that it looks all together. That's just a suggestion. You may like to devise your own special outline or special grouping for mental health. If you remember, we devised a phrase for social media, and social media is in this passage too. So the circle S with the M over the top of it looks a bit like an eye, doesn't it? An eye on the world. To be considered. So we're writing to be considered. That came up in the Chamber of Commerce, talks about changes to working patterns at 100 words per minute. So even if you're not at 100 words a minute yet, you can of course learn the groupings and apply to any speed. So don't ever disregard a video because you feel that the speed is too high or too slow for you, because there's something in every video for you to learn. Let's finish with two, which you'll be very familiar with. I would like, chopping the wood, kicking the L out of like, and checking there. Okay, we're good to go. Ready? In these days, we seem to be spending more and more time on our phones. As a matter of fact, recent studies have shown that the amount of time spent looking at screens is causing growing concern for a number of reasons. Device usage, smartphone addiction, and social media are impacting on our mental health, as well as impacting on mental health. Our eyes are taking a huge strain. If you are using your screen at work, things to be considered include using dark mode and taking a break from the screen 2 or 3 times every hour. I would like to draw your attention to some of the things to be considered when using your screens outside of work. Ready? Make a note of how much time you are spending on your devices. You may want to regain control. You can do this by deleting the app or apps you are using too much. Or if you do not want to be that drastic, you can limit the time you spend on them each day. Implement a no phones in the bedroom policy. Alternatively, you can try to have one day a week without using your phone at all. If you are already dismissing this advice as impossible to do, then at the very least, do not use your phone when out with a friend. There is nothing more annoying than being with someone who is always checking their phone. If you enjoyed this exam practice, please click like and remember to subscribe so that you will receive notifications when others are added. Good job! Let's love T-line together.